And that's a fear as an American that I have. And it keeps me from buying certain vehicles for that reason. Is it
That's
paranoid?
that's the nightmare scenario. Hello, everybody. Hi, Diana.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so excited. Today, we're having our first guest on the Auto Retail Intelligence Report. Matt Carpenter is the CEO of Dealerware. Some folks may know him from Silver Car, which he also ran coming out of Audi. Matt, it's so good to have you here with us today.
It's
Yay.
an honor to be here. Hello, Jamie. Hello, Diana. Good afternoon to all.
Matt, it's so great to see you, and I'm so happy that you're our first guest here. I've heard some news recently, and I'd love for you to tell everybody what your recent news is. Super exciting. And I've obviously been down the journey of capital raising and finding investors and acquisition. So tell us more.
We're excited. So shortly before the end of 2025, we announced that the Dealerware business has been acquired by growth investors. We're teaming up with new investors, and we intend to use new capital and new partnerships to expand what we do for the industry. We actually started the business as a B2C company. We started as Silver Car, which Jamie mentioned a bit earlier. And Silver Car was a B2C app-based car rental platform, mostly servicing airport markets with an all Audi fleet. Now, when Silver Car got up and running, I was actually still on the OEM side during my tenure at Audi and was responsible for the fleet partnership between Audi and Silver Car. One thing led to another. I got more and more involved. Audi got more and more involved. And we started scaling both the Silver Car B2C car rental business and the B2B Dealerware software business, leveraging a lot of transferable technology that we used at Silver Car to manage our own fleets of vehicles, bespoke for the retail automotive environment. And we gave it a go on seeing if we could help dealers solve fleet management problems. And lo and behold, it ended up working. And after scaling the business inside of the Silver Car corporate structure for 6 years, we announced our acquisition and we're teaming up with growth equity partners.
Okay, I have more questions.
All right.
Silver Car, I remember when it first came out, it was a subscription model out there for consumers, right? And it was
Yeah.
one of the first, I think Autonomy was a competitor probably way back when. And so you guys were out there doing subscriptions. Did that model work, Matt? Because I'm super curious in terms of whether that model actually held versus customers buying the car or leasing it.
We tried our hand at the software business and it ended up working. We found product market fit with Dealerware, and we made a decision that Dealerware would be a vehicle to deploy very similar mobility offerings, but in partnership with OEMs and dealerships, leveraging assets that already existed. So we didn't have to continue to carry fleets of vehicles and our own standalone centers and our own standalone staffs. So really transitioning into a pure play software platform to unlock a lot of the product goodness that we scaled at Silver Car and Audi Select, but in a much more viable business model.
I could totally see the dealers going, I told you so. You always needed me,
Yeah,
right?
they were right.
So it all really grew out of the same software, just kind of redeploying how it fits in the value chain.
Yeah. There's tons of transferable tech. Once you build your own fleet management stack to manage your own fleet of cars and your own employees that manage the fleets and manage the customer experience, there's a lot of transferable functionality from ingesting the vehicle telematics to building out a UX for the consumer, the fleet management command center for the fleet managers at any location, embedded payments, all the API integrations and the ecosystem around us. All of that ended up being super useful as we scale Dealerware.
Are dealers mostly using it to handle loaner fleets, or are they actually renting cars themselves? Is it a combination of both?
So the one universal fleet management need across the franchise dealer networks, across all OEM brands, is that just about every franchise dealer has a service loaner fleet. as the most scaled alternative transportation system for consumers when their cars are in the shop. But the universal truth for our user base, which is now up to almost 3,300 rooftops across the US and Canada,
Wow.
is that just about every one of our customers has a service loaner fleet.
How does it differentiate itself, Matt, versus just a service loaner that you can get from the service department? What other features do you have that dealers might want?
Being the first mobile first platform.
Interesting. So I have other questions for you.
Yeah.
What was the valuation?
Valuation we did not disclose. Our new investment partners like Dealerware, including the people, and they're not in a hurry to change who we are and how we're made up. They're in a hurry to accelerate what we do and expand what we do. And what faster path do we have than largely rolling with the incumbent team that's done such a good job in these 6-7 years that we've scaled Dealerware?
Matt, does that mean hiring more people? And if so, what kind? Is it more programmers, more salespeople? What's the play here?
So we're expanding the organization primarily in R&D and go-to-market. So we will be expanding both organizations within R&D, software engineering. Data engineering is probably our highest technical growth area in the company, and including scaling our own plans for AI tooling and the applications that will be enhanced by AI in Dealerware over the course of time. And then on the go-to-market side, it's really all of the above, expanding business development, expanding our sales organization, and growing our marketing department. So there's a bit of hiring across the org. We will probably expand 20 to 30% in year one of this new journey with our new partners.
Can you elaborate a little more on AI? Is it something that you're kind of just integrating and you see it playing a bigger role, or is it already a big part of how Dealerware operates?
It's obviously a trend that has a lot of traction in the industry, and there's a ton of conversation. Companies that are pitching you an AI should acknowledge upfront, it all starts on a well-structured data foundation first, which we've been investing in for years. We're using AI for vehicle inspections. So think about almost like a car rental experience, scanning the image of a vehicle when it is contracted out by the dealer. And then when it returns in, let's say, 5 days, the same technology on mobile devices with just simple iPhone and iPad camera imaging also collects imaging on the vehicle and then compares what does the car look like today versus when it went out on contract.
I guess I also have a couple questions. Who are your customers? Is it just dealers, or are you also working with OEMs? And is any of this co-opable?
We announced last year an exclusive partnership with Nissan North America. So all of the Nissan and Infiniti franchise dealers in the US run their rental and loaner fleets on Dealerware.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that program is co-opted by Nissan, and that commerce is in between the dealers and Nissan. We do some direct billing with Nissan North America. We do some direct billing with the Nissan and Infiniti dealerships. And then there's some exchange of funds in between Nissan North America and the dealers as well.
Based on all the stuff that's happening in the market, what do you find the most interesting right now happening in automotive?
Oh, geez. It's all interesting to me. I grew up in Detroit, and this is the only thing that I know and the only thing that I've done. So I
You got to
follow.
pick one. You got to pick one.
I got to
And
pick
there's a lot
one.
going on. There's lots going on, right? Like there is an Iran war, and so gas prices are going up, and could be EV coming back. What is the one thing that you're like, wow, I'm very interested in this right now?
I'll pick one thing, and if you don't like it, Diana, you can ask me another one. I'm going to go with recency bias right now. I think what is fascinating right now is actually on the consumer side with
Okay.
vehicle affordability. Yeah.
Tell me.
So in the last 5 years, the price of a new car and the price of a used car have both gone up exponentially. Over $10,000 average transaction price increase on the new car side. That is a very significant move at a time where not only is there added economic pressure on many US households, but also the uncertainty of you mentioned what's going on in Iran, because everything has been subject to inflation, especially vehicles. So how that plays out in the end market and whether or not we see a shift from vehicle ownership to vehicle usage, I think this is going to play out in a profound way in the next 1 or 2 years. I just think there's going to be a material amount of US households that condense down their household fleets from 3 vehicles to two.
I moved to Manhattan 5 years ago. I had 5 cars. You know what I'm down to? I'm down to one, and I'm not even the owner. The company actually owns the one. And
Yeah,
my
I believe
husband
it.
says all the time, he's like, you don't even need the one, Diana. There's all these other ways to get around. I'm like, but I have to go to Jersey during the weekends. And he's like, so you take an Uber when you have to go there. So I guess that might be the way the trend is all going, especially in major metropolitan areas.
Yeah, I think so. And particularly in the new age of remote work, coupled with a generation that's just less fickle about owning things, renting apartments and sharing cars in New York City. The consumers in front of us today are more comfortable with that combination than maybe 10, 15 years ago.
But I thought remote work is going away.
It's
I was
being calibrated. It's being calibrated. I still know plenty of people that are working remote, at least one of the adults in the household. And all it really does is take one. If you have one of the adults in the household working remote, do you really need to own 2 cars? I don't know. I think a lot of Americans are rethinking that. But we are preparing dealers and delivering and deploying the optionality for dealers to participate in daily, weekly, monthly mobility.
Matt, you're talking about changes in the way people think about mobility, how they get around, how they live their lives economically. What do you think about robotaxis? Do you see that taking a bigger share? We know this is a really big year for robotaxis as they try to spread out around the country. And how does that fit for you with the sort of ride hailing model?
So I think that autonomous vehicle technology will continue to advance. I think in certain markets it will grow fast. In other markets, it may be more difficult, but it will be part of many transportation options. Personal point of view here, I think it's a better form of traditional ride hailing to the extent that, the masses in America and beyond get comfortable going into a vehicle that doesn't have a human driver. We'll see how this transportation option will be leveraged as an alternative to owning a vehicle. I don't know yet.
You
How's
know,
that going to affect Uber, though? You think Uber drivers are going away in the future?
I think some of the network drivers will go away. Don't want to necessarily name names. And, Lyft and Uber have long been the market leaders here, and they have also long invested in autonomous vehicle technology. So I would expect their businesses to have a response, at least in the form of partnerships. But I do think more and more of us who ride in ride share trips will be doing so in vehicles that don't have a human driver.
the thing for me, and I think, Uber, as you said, they were big in autonomous driving, and then they got out of it when they were out of money, and now they're getting back into it again, and in a big way. I guess to me, I always wonder when in people's business models, are they assuming away how disgusting humans are? The likelihood of, McDonald's wrappers and used tissues and worse, being left behind, and how often the vehicles will need to be, serviced and cleaned or detailed or whatever else. Do you have thoughts on that? I'm curious how you see that working out.
I think you have to do it at super scale to really know and understand and appreciate it. Yeah. So, the trip mileage is getting up there, measured in the millions, tens of millions. But the number of commercial trips needs to approach that volume before you really understand how do you set this thing up to be widely adopted.
Mhm.
And there will be a few demand cliffs, in my opinion. There's going to be a fair share of Americans that will just never get in one.
Diana has been saying dealers are really stressed by margin compression as well as the affordability challenges we were talking about earlier for customers. Is that what you're hearing too?
Yeah, I would say it varies from market to market geographically, and it varies from OEM brand to OEM brand. we're reaching a new equilibrium in the relationship between supply and demand. The supply of vehicles on the new car side is now back over 3 million vehicles, and the sales volume is about flat. And that's before you get into segment level nuance, like what's going on with electric vehicles. So anytime that supply catches up with demand and surpasses demand, your frontline retailers are going to be on edge. Yeah, we had a nice extended multi-year run in which the market was a little short on cars. And that's good for pricing. That's good for margins. Both the OEMs and the retailers took advantage of that. And now it's a little bit different. So margin compression is now in year 3 of downward trend. Some brands have more demand than cars. Some brands have more cars than demand.
But don't you think there are OEMs that are not going to make it? I mean, aren't there just too many at this point?
I do think there will be consolidation across the industry. There may be some consolidation at the OEM level. There has been some consolidation at the retail level, and there's certainly consolidation at the software level. I think it's going to be very difficult for all of these standalone businesses to navigate and grow through this next phase of our industry, which will not be as easy in the next 5 years as maybe it has been in the last 5 years. So I expect at every tier of automotive for consolidation to happen. I don't think I'm the one to predict where the consolidation happens at the OEM level, but I do think there will be some.
Person who should answer also that question is Jamie Butters, because
He talks to everybody.
exactly. And I want to know more. Is this going to be what happens in 2008? And I wonder, Jamie, do you remember when General Motors and Ford both, one filed bankruptcy and the other one was close? Is that going to happen again? That is my question.
The companies are in a lot better shape than they were then. But across the board, right? I mean, globally, the Chinese industry needs to contract considerably. We've had new entrants, right? Tesla, maybe some of the others are small enough to not be a problem, but I mean, Tesla sells enough volume that puts pressure on brands. We've already seen Jaguar go from, a pretty decent size luxury brand to something trying to be really small, ultra luxury. That's kind of walking a plank almost. It's like you better work or they'll be, shark food. With GM's bankruptcy restructuring and others, Ford's restructuring during that time, brand consolidation. We know Stellantis has, depending if you count Leap Motor, like 14, 15 brands. There's been a lot of question. Do they really need all those? Can they rationalize keeping all of those? Of course, we know getting rid of brands is expensive too, but sometimes maintaining all of the brands gets to be too expensive. Mercury's gone, Oldsmobile's gone, Plymouth, Hummer was gone for a while. So brand consolidation, which really hits dealers, is even more likely than actual companies going away.
Do you remember Saab went under and Saturn went under? And wouldn't it happen in times like this right now when affordability is an issue, gas prices are an all-time high? I'd like to place some bets on who's going to be around. And then if that happens, what happens to the dealer community? Because I have to tell you, there's some dealers, they are so angry right now about what's happening between Scout and Volkswagen. I mean, it's bad out there.
We've got the tariffs. Automotive News did a new tally saying, automakers have identified $35 billion in tariff costs. So that's like $2,000, maybe $2,200 per car. You've been saying you don't believe that the automakers will keep eating that. I mean, we're seeing now they're starting to really raise prices, depending on whose model you're looking at, $300, $500, $1,000 or more. But $1,000 isn't going to cover $2,000 per car in extra taxes. So it's a lot of pressure still on the industry as well as on the consumer.
I met with the federal government today. It was so funny because I had a meeting with an hour and a half with them. And I have to say that they are wanting to understand the difference between supply illumination, understanding where all the parts are coming in across the country based on every single car that's here in the United States. I mean, I think this is a big topic in the future. And the main reason is because there are certain countries that are no longer allies with the United States of America. And they are concerned about the supply illumination in terms of the supply and what we're buying and what's coming into this country. How is that going to affect some of the dealers and the OEMs, Jamie, and that?
Yeah, well, and we've seen some clever workarounds to make it hard to identify parts that come from China. If you can take the parts from China and then build them into a component in a friendlier country like Korea or Thailand or something, and then send it to the US as made in Thailand, that's a more attractive way to do it.
They know that.
When supply chains get restricted,
Yep.
and when more and more manufacturers have to go through the scrutiny of creating supply chain component level transparency, the cost of the car goes up to build, which means the grounded price to the dealer will go up and the end price to the consumer will go up. So the cost of compliance, the hard cost of tariffs, the bottlenecks and complexities of managing a more restricted supply chain, these are themes that all point to more expensive cars into the future, which will, by the way, inform and potentially limit the product portfolios offered by those OEMs.
I thought, like, what's the big deal getting some things from here and there? No, no, I think, and they didn't say this on the call, but I think, and I'd like your opinions on this, they're afraid of the data going and leaking out to other countries. And so I didn't realize this, but I find it super interesting right now. Everybody is worried about the amount of data collection that's coming in from all of these vehicles and where that actually is going. So I think that was one of the issues with TikTok, right? It's just like American behavior, what they're looking at, and how we influence that. But cars is actually one of the biggest areas that collects all this American data, and they don't want that to go to a country that we're not really allies with, is what I'm feeling. Is that what you're seeing as well? And is that going to be a problem for some of these manufacturers?
The Commerce Department put in a rule under the Biden administration that prohibits cars with Chinese, Russian, Iranian, maybe a few other North Korean, but it really just means Chinese hardware or soft connected car hardware or software, right? It hasn't kicked in yet. It's still on the books, but Trump and Xi are supposed to meet in April to extend their trade truce. Could be on the table, right? And the thinking about if there's going to be Chinese cars sold in the US or made in the US, or as you said, even just components, because a lot of the best, cheapest LiDAR can come out of China. There's a lot of good technology in China, but the concern is there going to be a backdoor? Is there a way for them to steal the data? And like, is this just paranoid thinking? It's not, because China put severe limits on where Teslas could drive within China because they assumed that Tesla would take data about their government properties and give it to the Biden administration. And this is when Musk and Biden weren't talking at all. Biden would have auto industry events and invite everybody but Tesla. And yet the Chinese government was afraid that Tesla would give data to our government. So if that's what they thought Tesla would do, I think a healthy suspicion, if not outright cynicism on the part of American consumers and regulators is worthwhile, because these companies have very close relations with the government. Their funding is very government oriented. It's a heavy-handed authoritarian government there that they cannot not give data to if required.
So I guess my question is, because I think that that's probably one of the biggest things is understanding the data. But during war, can the cars actually just stop? Can they drive themselves? Can they drive you off a cliff? I mean, like these are all the things that I'm thinking. Like if I buy a car where it's coming from China, can any of those things happen to me? And that's a fear as an American that I have. And it keeps me from buying certain vehicles for that reason. Is it paranoid?
That's the nightmare scenario with automated driving. Could it be hacked? The more the car is controlling things, it's not a simple machine. It's not like a bicycle with an engine. It's a computer on wheels, and that leaves some inherent vulnerabilities and mystery.
The combination of autonomous vehicle technology, driver assistance systems, immobilization, more and more can be done with these vehicles remotely. There's no doubt. So the anxiety from many consumers is real, and maybe that's the most important point here. Whether or not all of this gets addressed in regulation and testing, it doesn't matter if the consumer is still worried about it, because the worry and the anxiety will impact their purchasing behaviors. They'll either avoid new vehicle purchases or, as a subset, doing business with certain brands. So that's a very real market impact. I'm a bit more trusting of the system to make sure that very, very bad things don't happen by the time imported vehicles get to the United States. But I know the anxiety is real, which means the marketplace changes.
We should talk at least a little about what's going on in Iran. Gasoline prices have jumped. They're above $3.90 a gallon for regular, I'm seeing right now. And that's starting to get to where it might really affect consumer behavior. But everything I'm seeing so far is that it hasn't hurt truck sales or led people running faster to hybrids and EVs yet. Is that what you're hearing, Matt?
Today is an interesting day to ask me. I actually am driving a 2025 Ford Expedition, and I had to fill it up this morning. And it was over $5 a gallon in Michigan, and it cost $130 to fill up the tank. So that's my personal aside on this topic. I do think it's a very visible consumer metric, right? The price of a barrel of oil, the average price at the pump, it's something that people pay attention to. What I will offer from my experience, the narrative seems to be bigger than the actual purchase behavior. And this still remains largely a supply side marketplace with long product development life cycles. So, of the 3 million vehicles that are in inventory, new vehicles at franchise dealers today, if 80 to 85% of them are trucks and SUVs, you're not going to see a seismic mix shift to sedans that don't exist. If the conflict is prolonged and the price of oil and gas stays high, could it motivate and increase short-term some demand for EVs again where there is supply? Yeah, maybe. I personally think that EV will continue to grow in mix, but from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10%, I do think it has been calibrated.
How long would the war have to go to actually affect fuel prices, then affect supply and issues with the automotive industry in buying, purchasing vehicles?
If it's much more than a month or so, I think it'll start to rattle some confidence, because the hope was that it would end in 4 to 5 weeks. If it looks like it's going to go longer, that could be really problematic. And even just staying as it is, prices have gone to about $100 a barrel. If they go closer to 150 or 200, the kinds of prices that Matt's talking about, that's going to start really affecting people when they see 5s and 6s on the gas station signs. I think sometimes it's more narrative than the actual economic impact, but for people on the margins, it creates a lot of anxiety, and it just ticks off everybody, unless they drive an EV and they can charge at home for free.
The final thing on this topic that I'll offer is the inventory and sales mix will shift faster on the used car side, where there's much more supply. There's not much you can do to course correct what new vehicle inventory and new vehicle product life cycle looks like, right? And that's measured in years, not months.
Yeah.
But whether you're a consumer shopping or a retail operator, you can shift on the used car strategy pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right? And you have a lot of different sourcing channels. And, there's 3 million new vehicles in stock, but there's tens of millions of available used cars in stock, hybrids, sedans, all different makes, models, and model years. The strongest operators will respond with used vehicle sourcing strategies, and the consumer that is impacted most by these changes, they'll start shopping for used vehicles that are probably smaller and have better fuel economy. So I think we'll see a run up on used hybrids in a big way, and I'm sure that the markets are already trending in that direction.
Excellent point, Matt. Really appreciate your insights, and it's been so great having you here. Thanks so much. We hope you can come again.
Yeah.
Great to
So
see
much,
you.
Matt.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Jamie. Always a joy.